Good evening, everyone. I'm Michael Reddy. This is a Family Energetics free evening, and we're going to be discussing and doing possibly some process around a topic tonight. And the topic is, well, the name of the blog that I wrote for the North American Systemic Constellation website is called Problem, Issue, Theme, or Solution. And I will sort of put it to you this way. When I first started out learning constellations, and really in a lot of different therapeutic or coaching processes, a person comes in and presents a problem. There's something that isn't the way it ought to be, and or the way they want it. And then as the constellation world evolved a little bit, people started not using the term problem, they used the term issue. And then I started hearing people use the word theme. And I am very much a solution-focused operator. I'm very staunch about that in certain ways. So I want to take you through a process, the four-step process that I use to really focus either therapeutic work, coaching work, or constellation work. And that involves, I mean, it makes sense to start by talking about a problem. You know, you ask what's wrong. And someone says, I'm having trouble with my business, or I'm having this or that. Here, somebody give me a problem. And make it not huge, not terribly intimate, but somewhat real, and we'll work through this. In fact, several of you. Come up with something you'd like to hear. Here's the question I typically ask. Give me one or two things that you would like to see really get better in your life that don't seem to be moving the way you would like them to.
Here's a good classic one. We need more clients.
Okay.
It's probably true of everybody.
Okay. Do me a favor. Say, I don't have enough clients.
Oh, I don't have enough clients. I'm not making enough money.
There you go. Now, I there's a reason why I did that, because she already took the second step there already. That's fine. The first step is, who else? Somebody else. Come on, participate here. You know that I'm pushy about this.
I don't have enough confidence to get clients.
Okay. So I don't have enough confidence to get clients. Or I don't have enough clients. I'm not making enough money. Anybody else want to play?
Oh, I'm Linda here. I could say I don't know exactly how to position my offerings, which one to do first, how to put it together. I've got no idea. Too much.
Okay. Okay, so, I mean, it really makes sense to start this way, but there's this thing that you get taught in coaching especially, and that was very much part of the human potential movement in the United States, which is you can't solve the problem while you're in the problem space. Clients and even we ourselves tend to come into a situation and we're wrapped up in the problem. We see it all around us. We're kind of helpless in a way. And so there's a process of getting out of the problem space and into the solution space that's a good part of what I want to talk about here tonight. So the first thing I want to do, the first thing I always do, and Izzy, who's ahead of the game, was already doing it, is I'll ask people, okay, well, if we were to put that, you know, what is it, if you don't have X or can't do X, then what does it look like if you know, can you give me that problem stated, you know, can you reverse it? Can you give me the solution? Can you state the solution for me?
I don't even remember what I said.
Sorry?
I don't even remember what I said.
Here, I don't have enough clients. What are we going to do with that?
I want more clients.
Yeah. I mean, that one's very simple. They're not always that simple.
No, they're not.
So here's one in the blog. I used an example. I'm exhausted and scared all the time, and my business is failing. So that's a problem statement. If we reverse it, we come up with something like, well, what did we have? We had exhausted, scared, and business is failing. So I'm calm and I'm awake and my business is booming. Now, all I did was take each one of those and look for the relevant positive opposite. What sense does that make?
Well,
Yeah.
can I distinguish between I want more clients and what you just said, which sounds like an affirmation?
This is all very related to affirmations, and we may move in that direction.
Okay.
This is deeply related to affirmations. So you're entirely right. So another problem was I don't have enough confidence to look for clients. Was that it?
Yes.
So what are we going to do if we reverse that? What does it sound like?
I have enough confidence to go out and get some clients.
Okay.
And in fact, Michael, mine could be rather than I want more clients, it could be I have lots of clients.
Okay.
That's what I want. Yeah.
Okay. So that's really the first thing that we do here. So we just reverse the problem statement. Okay. I'm waiting for Stephen to finish that massive yawn.
You have to believe that they're out there as well, don't you?
Yeah. Well, there's all sorts of things that you might have to believe, but I kind of don't want to go there yet. Come back to that later.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Once you've done that, once you have some sort of positive statement which says, I'm calm, I'm awake, and my business is booming, or what was yours, Izzy?
And I have lots of clients coming in.
Yeah.
Lots of new clients coming in.
So I'm gonna do three things with this. I'm gonna focus it, I'm gonna instantiate it, and I'm gonna open it to the universe. And each one of those has a specific meaning. So usually when people reverse their problem statement, it's pretty global. It's pretty vague. I mean, it's like, okay, I don't have enough clients. I do have enough clients. So I then move to Steve DeShauzer's and Milton Erickson's sort of miracle question kind of thing, which is, okay, so let's imagine that a month from now or 6 weeks from now, you wake up one morning and a miracle has happened, and it's true now. So I have enough clients is true, and I'm calm and awake, and my business is booming. That they're true. So you wake up, the miracle has happened. That's the reality now. And I want to ask you, okay, so what is that? What happens to you that day? What is it that happens to you that day that tells you that this is true now? So Izzy, what would happen that day if your positive statement is true? What would that day start to look like?
Well, I just wrote that I'd wake up at peace, feeling energized, and I'd have new clients calling me and booking in, and lots of hearing people tell me that lots of people are talking about constellations in my community.
Okay. Sharon, you want to play? What would you do that's different if you woke up 6 weeks from now and you had this confidence that you do not feel you have right now?
I think I would be able to pursue talking to people, getting to know more people, and getting my name out there. taken the actions to do the YouTubes or the podcasts or
Okay.
the things I need to do.
And how do you want that to feel to you as you do it?
Exciting and
Okay.
not fearful.
Now, there you go again. Let's get rid of that negative.
Exciting and confident.
Yeah. It's easy. It's effortless. Okay?
Yeah.
You notice the negative crept back in there again, right?
Yes.
Okay. Can't position offerings. So that was that Linda or Marie? That was Linda.
Yeah, that was Linda. She seems to have gone.
So let's turn that one around. What is it now? Just
Should be here.
give us the relative positive opposite, Linda.
I've positioned what I offer really well.
Okay, that's it. Okay. Yeah, you wake up 6 months from now, 6 weeks from now, or a month or whatever, and that's happened. It's true. You're doing it. So what's that? What happens that day? What do you do that lets you see that, wow, this change has really taken place?
One image that's come so far is I have a beautiful resource folder. And so everything I need is right at my fingertips.
Okay. What kind of things do you need? What kind of things do you have now in this future time that we're talking about? What's in that resource folder?
I actually think it's confidence.
Oh, so this is
yeah,
not
having bits of paper to me means confidence, but actually, I don't know that it is.
okay. So if we take the one that I used in the blog, we've taken I'm calm and awake and my business is booming, and we've done this 6 weeks out ahead thing, and I wake up and I just find that I have this easy energy to work calmly and steadily at my business. It just happens. Now you notice what I'm doing is trying to make this concrete. Number one, I'm trying to make details as if I was writing a story about it, and I'm putting it in the future as if it's happened, and we're almost kind of looking back. We're past the, and you notice that basically what we're doing is we're punching our way out of the problem space. We are putting some sketches, some pictures in the world, in our heads, out to the universe about what the solution space looks like. There are just so many people that come around and they have no idea. I can think of clients of mine right now who have no idea. They have some major issues and they have no idea what their lives would look like if we got past those issues. And I know that at different times in different ways, among the things that I do, I have to get them to paint pictures of like, what am I gonna be doing? Right now, I'm beset by this and that major problem that's causing me to lose functionality or not be healthy or things like that. It's taken up a lot of my life in some cases. The person has really, they're attached to that. It's not fun. Do you understand me? But there is this fear also of change, just a change of I don't know what change looks like. Change is scary. So we're working here to first reverse the problem statement, which is sometimes simple and sometimes not so simple, and then focus it somewhat, because we go from. Well, I'm going to talk to you about Bill Bengston here shortly, a little bit. The guy who healed cancer in mice that I'm fascinated with right now. And he says everybody starts out with the same thing, the same three things. I want to be healthy, I want to be wealthy, and what's the other one? I want to be healthy, I want to be wealthy.
Happy?
And happy, yes, right. And then the fourth one is I want love in my life. And everybody says that. And he's not satisfied with that, and I'm not satisfied with that either. What does that look like for you? Okay, so that's what I call focusing, is that, 6 weeks out. Kind of gotten ahead of myself a little bit. I've kind of collapsed two things into one here. I do that every once in a while. People have learned that it usually works out anyway. And there's moments of silence as well. That's good. So
it's a sign of genius.
Yeah. When I first started out to write Health, Happiness, and Family Constellations, I got about $10,000 worth of really high-end coaching and mentoring around writing for business purposes. And they told me I didn't know that I didn't know who to be for my readers. I didn't know who to be for my audience. And they told me to take the stuff that I had and start teaching classes about it and find out what it was that people wanted from me. And I sort of found out that what seemed to work, this is odd but true, was that, I would kind of fumble all over myself, forget things sometimes, make jokes about myself at times, but in the end would come out with a lot of brilliant stuff, and that's what people liked. So here we are. That's what we're doing tonight. So see, I collapsed two steps here. I took you into what I call instantiating instead of focusing. If I go back to this example in the blog, let me do that. I started out with, I'm exhausted and scared all the time and my business is failing. So we turned that around into, I'm calm and awake and my business is booming. If we try to focus that a little bit, it becomes, I have the energy to work calmly and steadily in my business. And if we try to get some more detail, which it becomes something like I wake up excited about the day's work, or I look back at a week amazed at how much I've accomplished, or it's easy and fascinating to put in my work hours. Basically, I'm trying to get you to go into the future and paint a picture of what it is your life is going to be like, a reasonably concrete picture. It doesn't have to be huge or vast in its detail or anything. A reasonably concrete picture, some instances of what life is going to be like when you solve this problem. All right, so what do you think of this so far? It's your turn.
I find this to be a bit like manifestation, only it doesn't make, I love the fact that it doesn't make achieving the goal the end result. You're actually having us paint the picture to see the change and become the change.
Okay, that makes sense. In this blog, I talked about the fact that I don't ask people what would be a milestone on the way to achieving this goal, because I don't, the milestones tends to be a tedious word used in coaching and things like this, or project management, where there's all sorts of milestones. As Sharon said, in some sense, we're creating we're trying to create in ours. Look, the goal here, and this is very, very close to affirmations. You are trying to, what will draw something to you is the feelings that you would have if it were true. It doesn't matter, you can repeat an affirmation or write an affirmation or do a visualization over and over again, but if you do not create in yourself the enthusiasm, the feeling of happiness, it's not going to happen. And very, very, very often you will find that the problem really is you don't know how to deal with those feelings. The reason you don't have X is the feelings you would have if you had it are troublesome for you in some manner. You don't feel you deserve them, or you feel you've been told that if you feel that good, there's, you're just riding for a fall. It's going to, don't you dare think life is going to be that good for you, et cetera, and so on. What about
and
that?
all that is, sorry.
Go ahead, Izzy.
And all that is often embedded in the constellation that you're about to do. And for me, the milestone as well, the reason why I don't like the milestone is because it implies a set way of achieving the goal. Whereas once we have the end goal, we let go of how that actually happens. And the other thing for me is it's not just about getting into that feeling, but I think it so helps this miracle question. I find that then clients, even if they forget that they've even spoken that, when you're in the chair and talking to them and getting them to just have those few ideas about what it could feel like and be for them if they did resolve this issue that they've come with, I think it really helps them down the track, like literally, not just metaphorically, but like, down the track when they suddenly realize that that's happening in their lives. It kind of gives them this anchor. Oh my God, that's right. I spoke of that sitting in the constellation, that this is how I wanted my life to look. This is how life would look without that.
I agree very much. Hey, Stephen.
Yeah.
Please mute your video when you start doing stuff like that, because it's like
Okay.
we're all very distracted watching you walk around and do all this stuff. Just mute it while you're doing it and then put it back on afterwards. Okay?
Yeah.
That's kind of an etiquette thing, which I didn't mention in the beginning, but
Yeah, I think also.
that's the wrong one. You muted your audio.
Where it says stop video.
There you go. Now then, please show yourself when you come back. Okay.
Yeah, when that is really entering a new reality, isn't it?
Yes.
And people might be scared that there's no going back. But with what they're familiar with, because they're so familiar with the way things are now. If everything changed.
Well, my experience with deep change is that it comes in waves. So there is going back. You go forwards a little bit. You go 2 steps forwards, 1 step back, 2 steps forwards, 1 step back. And the trend line is towards deep change. But in fact, it's not a straight line.
Right, so it's like a step-by-step thing.
If you watch my hand here, it's like and a lot depends on what you do. Here you are, you're going up. Now it's starting to, you've gotten tired, you've gotten scared. The new thing is, your old habits are taking over, so it starts to go down a little bit, right? You slip back.
Yeah.
A lot depends on what you do when you start to slip back. Because if you get all depressed or angry or upset, or you quit doing whatever it is that's moving you this way, that drop is going to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
So I tell people a lot, it's the backside of these curves that determines how fast this thing rises. It is natural to have old patterns. If you're doing real deep change, you're going to have old patterns reassert, because they're instinctive, they're defaults.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, you're trying to build the new ones. You're trying to, and I honestly think this is a testing process. It's like you really don't know what the new world is like, and it is scary. So you go a little bit towards it, and it gets scared, or you get tired or something, and then you kind of fall back a little bit, and you say, "Oh, no, wait, that's bad back here. I don't like that." Then you move a little bit for this way, and okay, I guess it's a little safer up here. Do you follow me?
It's like testing the waters.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
you're testing both ends of an envelope. The low end is like, oh boy, this does not work. And the
Yeah.
high end is, the upper end is like, this is too scary for me.
Yeah, that's what I mean about not coming back. You know, they're so familiar with the way things are now, even if it's not, everything isn't ideal. You kind of, because you know what's happening, it's like the devil you know, isn't it?
Yes.
But
I mean, I just want to qualify that, because you do move backwards. They're just, hopefully they're small little moves.
yes, it's not going to be a sudden change and, you know, all of a sudden you wake up and everything has changed. That's not going to happen at all.
Actually, I have to sort of quibble with you a little bit again. There are phase changes too. Sometimes you'll hit some kind of plateau or something like that, and you'll be there for a while, and then a bunch of things will reach critical mass, and there will be a big jump. Both those things can happen.
Right.
One thing I've noticed, and this is especially true with my mother, she's very unhappy, and anytime you try to introduce her to change that could make her life better, she fights it, because and in her case, I think that her pain and her sorrow defines who she is to her.
Yes.
And it's afraid to let go of who you are to become somebody else.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, that's really something to watch, is what are you in your life? Are you really, you're suffering? To what extent? Some of us have grown up, I grew up just very, very dysfunctional family, a whole lot of trauma, ancestral and personal. And then there have been times in my life when I was my suffering. There's no question.
I mean, I find with constellation work that sometimes there is a massive shift, but if there is, it's because the whole system has aligned like that, and therefore there isn't any fear happening because it's just all shifted. And if you do get a little pattern come back, it's more like the awareness is so different that you go, oh, it's that thing again. Oh yeah, I remember that. Oh, and it's just like there's just not a hook anymore. It might happen, but you don't. It's not the same falling down process, and you can almost laugh at it that you recognize it, that's what it is. Maybe not laugh, but it's like, okay, and I'm not going to choose that. Whereas before the constellation, there was no choice but to go down there. It was like there wasn't another branch. Whereas for me, the experiences is after the constellation, there is another choice, where before there wasn't.
It makes sense, Izzy. I agree. Rosemary's just joined us. Hi, welcome. Okay, so now I've done, what I've done to you is done to you, done with you, done to myself, I don't know, whatever. Say, reverse the problem statement, try to focus it, and try to get some concrete instances of what it would look like. Now, there's a little bit of a problem with that. Izzy was right. She said, we're not concerned about means at all. We're not interested in how this happens. We don't want to get tangled up in that at all in this kind of thing. It's not that you cannot do constellations that are strategically oriented constellations. I have a client in the business world right now who's in a very, very tricky partnership situation. And it's very clearly impacted by several generations of his family. So we've done a fair amount of ancestral work. At the same time, tomorrow, for example, we're going to sit down and do a strategic business constellation to try to figure out what the energies are, what the path to a decent solution for him looks like in this very, very confusing situation he's in, with a lot of risk for himself. Now that's an actual out and out strategic constellation. So that's fine. You can do that. But in terms of this, setting up your desired positive change, the way I'm talking about it, we're not concerned about means. But if you make it all concrete, like I've said, aren't you limiting the universe? One of the things that people say about affirmations is, don't make them too concrete. And I think that there's a way to deal with this that is much better than leaving them vague. And I think the best way to deal with this is to make them, get yourself some real instances of what this new you or new life or what this change looks like. Things that you can, visualize and feel. And then all you have to do at the end is add or better, which we call that opening to the universe. So, I'm calm and awake and my business is booming or better. If I've been too explicit, if the plan that brings me this ultimate happiness that I'm after, if God's plan is a little different, great, no problem, or better. Do you follow me?
Yeah, I like the or better.
I will say again that the ultimate, for me, the work is all feelings. I don't care what you say. It's not, you can say that a person is excluded from a family, but the person is only excluded because feelings are excluded. Feelings in other people are they're not going to allow themselves to feel them, so therefore the person is excluded. If health is excluded from your life, there are issues where you do not feel safe being healthy. There's something like that going on. So adding more better, it's like really, to me, it's the best of both worlds. I've got my concrete picture. I can feel it. I can feel the feelings. And then I can just say, or better. And that way, if the universe wants to create these feelings in me in a slightly different way than I have currently envisioned, no problem. You see what I mean? Now, Marie mentioned affirmations. There's a blog on my website called 6 Rules for Successful Affirmations. And this is very, close to affirmation work. I just think personally, all of my coaching and therapy and constellation work, all of it goes better when I focus. It's just a question I ask people all the time. What is it you want to see better? What are the circumstances around it? And what past patterns in your birth family or ancestral family are affecting it? Those are the basic 3 questions. Every intake I do is just those questions. What is it you want to see better? What are the circumstances around it? What's helping it? What's hurting it? Right? What's supporting it? What's blocking it? And now let's look back at your developmental family and your ancestral family and say, what back there seems to relate to this? Where are some promising overlaps? Who else had this problem? Go ahead, Izzy.
Those 3 things that you were looking for, just from what you've done before, for me, I've always added in, and how do you want to feel? It's the being in the feeling state, and both that and again the feeling in respect to when you say who else have this problem, who else felt like that? Because one of the things I learned so strongly from you was that sure, often there's that there can be a very obvious promising overlap, but sometimes it's about the feeling. It may not look like these 2 events are similar, but actually it gives rise to the same feeling.
Yes.
Of being crushed or being
yes.
whatever. That's just an example.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a case where, let me see if I can talk about this without. So there's a father. I have to change a few details to talk about it. So There's a father who escaped from Russia and was just, had to immigrate to a couple countries, ended up in South America. This father was so traumatized by loss of country, loss of land, and the machinations of the secret police and so on and so forth, that he was, every time a policeman drove by, he was scared. He was terrified. I mean, literally to his death, was terrified. Then we have a son, his son, who happens to have been left on a picnic, lying out on a blanket, and was attacked by ants. This is Latin America. These are jungle. These are sort of very hot, humid climates. So these are fairly intense ants. And the ants were actually chewing on the kid's face. This is a 3-month-old baby. All right. And that is an echo of those feelings in the father. Do you understand me? The ants represent the secret police, this terror that the father had to his death and never dealt with. Am I making sense to you? Now, I'm trying to give an example of what Izzy's talking about here, that you might or might not see these two things as relating to one another, but in this case, they're structurally very similar. Ants are little organized, groups of very lockstep creatures that come around, and the child is helpless and being bitten by these ants, and that created in the child the same kind of terror that the father never dealt with. Do you get what I'm after here? So that's an example of this. So you can, I do a lot of work with affirmations. I've used them a lot. I write them out. I breathe them in meditations. And I've developed a bunch of kind of guidelines for myself. I keep them very short. I don't believe that you're trying to talk to a 2-year-old child in your subconscious. You're trying to train a dog, and I don't mean that to disrespect the dog. You're trying to train some very low-level default responses. They don't get big, long sentences full of logical quantifiers and, I have everything that I need in my life, including blah, 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 and I find that I'm, and so on. I don't think so. They get simple stuff. So keep it short, keep it sweet, and make it concrete. Only use positives. I don't think that this subconscious part of you understands negatives. If I say to you, Linda, don't get angry now. Linda, I'm looking at your face. Don't get angry. Can you unmute, please? Please unmute.
Yeah.
Don't get angry, okay? Please, don't get angry.
No, I won't get angry.
Right,
I'm scared.
Say it again.
I'm scared.
Right. No, but the point is, angry overwhelms the don't. If I sit there and I say to you, don't get angry enough, and push on you about that, you're going to get angry at me just because I'm missing your reality.
Really annoyed.
Yeah. And then I'm going to say, see, I knew you were angry at me. Right?
Yeah.
So get rid of the negatives.
The brain doesn't hear the not, it only hears the other one.
That's kind of it's hard to like, you know, it's hard to build an affirmation around certain things, like not smoking. I don't want to smoke. Or I don't want to stuff myself before bed. Well, that isn't going to work. You have to figure out something like, I go to bed happy and a little bit hungry. I go to bed happy to be a little bit hungry. Right? There are times when I will allow something like worry-free or pain-free as a kind of halfway house. Because sometimes it's just really hard to describe. It's hard to get any, like I have had at times over the past 10 years these neuropathies in my feet, which are just these pains that are signaled by, they're pains, they're not real, they're just nerves doing this thing, which I think is very related to my fight or flight system being dysregulated, right? And some other symbols too. But it's very hard to, you know, what am I going to say? Thank you for making my feet normal. Yeah, that doesn't help. So I will, in those cases, I'll maybe use pain-free or something like that for a little bit, or worry-free or something.
I've had to use pain-free because I just can't, you know, when I've had to do it with my back, because I just can't. There's that it's almost like it becomes a word, and it's better free. Your brain hears free more than not.
Yes, I think
no pain is not as strong as pain-free, because free is a really strong word, and also free comes after the pain, so you get the negative and then the positive.
Yeah, I agree. Although I have to say, when I first started to see signs in the United States, drug-free zones,
oh yeah,
I thought that meant was where you could get free drugs, and I really didn't. That one totally escaped me for a while. Keep it short, keep it sweet, positives only, please. Persistence makes perfect. You really do have to work it. It works if you work it. There's an interesting way to work with affirmations where you write them. You take a sheet of paper, and 3/4 of the way across you draw a vertical line, so that 3/4 of the page is over here on this side of the line and 1/4 is on the other side. And you write an affirmation. Let's see. Thank you so much for calming my stomach. All right. Say I've got a big gassy stomach, or, you know, pains in my stomach or something. So I make up this thing. Thank you so much for calming my stomach. So I'll write that 3 or 4 times.
In the large area.
I'm sorry?
You said you do a diagonal line, but not halfway through. You've got like 3/4 of the area. Is that right?
Yes. Here, wait, I'll show you. Something like, can you see the line?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So
Sorry, I thought it said diagonal.
I'm writing it as a vertical. I'm writing an affirmation over here. I write it 3 or 4 times. Then I come over here and I test my response to it.
Right.
And in the beginning, in the beginning, my response is, "Oh, no way, that ain't happening, bullshit," right? And I do, I might write that 10 times, 3 times a day, and test my response to it. You understand me? Now, the reason the line is over this far is because, it's 3/4 of it is positive, and you're just like allowing that little negative voice to speak a little bit. I had this one lady who would write one affirmation, and then she'd write a huge amount of stuff in the other column. So that was not cool. And what happens is, over 2, 3, 4 days, I'm guarantee you'll see this happening, that, it'll go to, well, maybe, it's possible, to something like, yeah, that would be great. Or that is great. So
Michael,
persistence makes perfect.
Michael,
Stephen might have had his hand up too.
Would you rate them? You know, like in tapping, would you rate it out of you as a?
Could very definitely do that.
Yeah. Like how the percentage to what you believe it. You know, I believe that about. You know.
That's about a 2 right now.
Yeah, that's about a 2, and then like.
I suppose if
that's about a 5 now.
If you look at it first thing in the morning, when your mind is fresh, you know, from waking up, you think, oh God, did I really write those comments on the right-hand column? You realise, it's sort of sinking more, I think, how ridiculous it is that you should be thinking in such a way.
Also, I love that it allows for you to have all of your feelings. So many times you hear, oh, you shouldn't feel that way, or why do you feel that way? That's wrong. And it just, it invalidates who you are. This way you get to validate, yes, I have these feelings,
yes,
but you get to actually face them as well.
Yes. And you're also, by the design of the way you're doing this, the preponderance of what you're doing is a positive, right? You're basically, you're entirely right, Sharon. You are allowing this old self or whatever it is to have a voice, and that's important. At the same time, though, you are giving it medicine, right?
Yeah,
you're shining light at it very strongly.
I like
and
that. Sorry, Izzy.
No, please don't say sorry. I talk too much as it is. Michael, are you going to tell us to tap on these right-hand side lots, maybe?
To what?
Tap on them? Could we tap on them?
Why don't you tell people? I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to tell that because it's getting too far afield. But I mean, yeah, there's a whole bunch of different ways of doing this kind of stuff. So rule number 4 is, we've had so far, keep it short and sweet, positives only, persistence make perfect, strong, and then the next one is strong feeling makes the magic. I had this one situation while I was running a shamanic Native American style group in New York City and living outside of the city in New Jersey. And in fact, I had just gotten deeply involved with a woman who had 3 children, and I needed a house for this woman and the 3 kids, and I needed a wood shop, and I didn't have a credit rating, and I didn't have hardly any money. And I made up this kick-ass affirmation. I like rhyming couplets. I make them rhyme a lot. And I would drive around in my VW bus at that time, which was a souped-up bus. It was like metallic paint and mag wheels. And it was a very cool bus. Sold it to the editor of Popular Mechanics eventually. I was very proud of that. Anyway, I would drive around at that, I drive out from, this hour-and-a-half drive from New Jersey into New York City, and I would do this affirmation. And at times, I'm a songwriter, so at times a melody would show up or some rhythm would show up, right? And I would be banging away on the steering wheel and doing this thing. I can't remember, but I had in this affirmation in 2 lines everything I needed in a house: a shop, space for the kids. I don't know. It's written down in some notebook, but I'm a terrible filer, so I don't know where the notebook is. But I would get so enthusiastic about this, right? And there's nothing to do driving anyway, especially because I didn't have, satellite radio or something like that. And I would sing it and drum it, and I swear to God, we found this 2.5-acre place with a 5-car garage that had a 70 by 20 foot space above the garage in the 2nd story. It had an apartment that could be rented below. It was owned by this guy who was a contractor, and he, we got that place. We rented that place with no credit rating and an option to buy it, which I knew was never going to happen, but he didn't know that. And we lived there for 3 years, and like we paid, you know, the rental was $1,700 a month American in the 90s. And we rented the apartment downstairs for $900. We paid $700 a month for that. And I'm telling you, that came out of that affirmation. It was literally, it was, you know, it was in the right place. It had enough space. It had this, it had that. And it was all that enthusiasm that created that. You know, I really got to where I just deeply believed that was going to happen. I had no idea how it could happen. Do you understand me? It was a very strange, rare thing that a guy would come along who respected the fact that I was building cabinets and boats and trying to support a family, and he didn't give two hoots about whether I had a credit rating or a job or any of that. He knew I was going to use the shop, and I did work like he did, and we were golden with that guy. Who would know? I couldn't have imagined that. The final thing here after strong, well, no, there's two more. Remember the future with gratitude. That's just a really good way to do it. Put yourself in the future, make it already true, and say, thank you for bringing me X. I am so grateful that X happened in my life. I am so happy that this took place. It's so wonderful to sit here 6 months from now and look back at all these amazing changes. I never would have believed it. And then the final thing is, we've already talked about, let the ends create the means. Don't be concerned about how it happens. So if you're applying this to constellation work, one of the things you can do, and I do very often, is I'll take this focused goal, which my students know I call the desired positive change, which they have now abbreviated to the DPC. So we go around talking about DPCs. And I'll put that into the constellation as a rep. In fact, I'll often start out with, you know, the client and the goal. And we might get some of the family system of the client out on the floor as well, and then we'll go and visit that goal. And I'm telling people, and I know most of you do too, you are that goal now. Don't be you thinking about the goal. You be the goal looking at this system around you. And a lot of times in the beginning, the goal will look at the system and say, holy shit, I can't do, I don't belong here. There's no way I could exist in this system the way it is right now. That's good. It means you've posed the problem. You understand me? Because that's the reality right now, is that that goal is somehow unattainable. And if the constellation is going to do some good, it's fine that that goal starts out looking at the system saying, ugh. You know, somebody comes along and they want, you know, a life mate. They want a partner. So you put the potential partner in. And then you put, you know, the client and mom and dad and grandma or something, and the potential partner looks at mom or something and says, whoa, I'm out of here. So you know where your work is headed. Do you understand me? What sense does that make?
A lot of sense. Holy cow.
All right, Stephen, how are you doing? You're either very quiet or you say amazing things. So how are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else got anything they want to say? You do say amazing things when you start talking. Okay, so anything more anybody want to say about that? This blog is, there's a nasconstellations.org. The blog is there. It's also on my website.
What's that again, Michael? Sorry.
North American Systemic Constellations, and it's nasconstellations.org. I have another one there on trauma, which I'll talk to you about one of these sessions. But now I want to talk to you about Bill Bengston, because this is just totally fascinating. Well, there's this guy that we talked about in one of these little groups, didn't we? Did we talk about this? All right.
I don't know if we talked about it here or elsewhere, but yes.
Yeah. Okay. So there is in the United States, well, no, it's actually in the world. There is something called the Society for Scientific Exploration. It's a bunch of mostly university-based scientist types who are very open about things like psychic skills and flying saucers and levitation and anything that they can find empirical evidence for. And if you don't know, the empirical evidence, laboratory quality evidence for psychic skills is overwhelming. Look at Dean Radin's books, R-A-D-I-N. They're tedious. And
the Heart Math, there's a lot on the Heart Math Institute as well on psychic stuff.
Thank you. And IONS, Institute of Noetic Studies, there's a lot there. So Bengston is the president of this, and he's got a book called, he's got a book and a set of tapes called Hands-on Healing. So this guy, first of all, even though he's like a kind of sociologist, statistician, scientist at St. Joseph's University in Brooklyn, he's a very interesting man. And he was having precognitive dreams as a kid and things like this. And he grew up and he knew this guy named Ben who was a hands-on healer. And Ben was almost an infallible for certain things. There were certain things that, like, Ben couldn't cure warts. He couldn't help warts at all. There were certain things that he couldn't help. But for heavy-duty stuff like cancer, he was almost, close to 100%. This guy was good. So Bill Bengston got very, very interested in Ben and started working with him and learning from him and learned how to do this. And then he tried to get Ben into the laboratory to do tests. And Ben copped out. They had mice. They had these mice that, you give them a shot with this mammary cancer in it, and 28 days later they die, period. No exceptions. They're used all over the world in experiments because this is such a absolute thing that happens, right? Give them a shot, 28 days they die. And so Bill wanted Ben to come in and fix the cancer in the mice. And they finally got this set up after all sorts of struggle, because it's not easy to do these kinds of experiments in universities. And then Ben wouldn't come. Ben refused to come. So Bill kind of knew a little bit about how to do this. So Bill got stuck doing the experiment. So he's sitting there with his hands around, a cage. They got control mice off in another place, and then they got the mice, the 10, 15 mice that have been injected in a cage, and he's sitting there an hour a day with his two hands on either side of the cage doing this thing, right? And the mice get these big tumors, like they all do, and everybody gets very discouraged, like, nothing seems to be happening. The only thing that was happening was that control mice were getting the tumors, but the control mice were acting sicker. And the mice that were being treated, they had the tumors, but they were kind of still active, and they didn't seem as sick. But they were getting these monstrous tumors. So, somewhere around 21 days, well into this, after everybody is like already very discouraged, a little black dot appears on the tumors. Then the little black dot turns into a red ulcer. Then the red ulcer turns white. Then all of a sudden the tumors start to shrink and they go away. They go away in all the mice. Then you can inject these mice with the same stuff again, and they're immune to the cancer. So he not only cured them, well, he didn't cure them, but some energy moving through him cured them, but it made them immune as well. All right. So then the next thing Bill wants to do is, well, is this teachable? Okay. So he and Ben have talked a lot, spent years talking about what it is Ben is doing when Ben does his thing on people. So Bill knows what Ben does. So Bill hires a bunch of graduate students, has a grant, has the cooperation of some professors and things, and he trains them in his method. And his method, he doesn't care. They don't believe him. It doesn't matter whether they believe him or not. All they have to do is learn to do what he wants them to do, right? So this has been done many times now. And skeptical graduate students who don't believe a word of it, if they do this, and it's not that easy to do what it, I'll tell you what it is. That's where we're going, is what it is he had them do. Learn to do. It works. Okay? Fucking works. I mean, and it works reliably. Not only that, in some cases it leaks over into the control mice. Some of the graduate students went to visit the control mice and somehow got emotionally involved with the control mice, and some of the control mice start getting well too. And my conversation with Bengston, I know this guy, is, well, maybe those are brothers and sisters. What if those are siblings of the mice that you're treating? Because if there's some kind of resonance, we would expect it to be stronger between siblings as opposed to non-siblings. That's the constellation thing. So this might be a way to test constellations, which I'm totally blown away by. But here's what he's having people do. This is mind-blowing, and it's exactly what we've been talking about. He says, okay, to learn this method, first thing you have to do is get a list of 20 things that fulfill your deepest desires. You gotta make up at least 20 things that you want that'll make you happy. They only involve you. They're totally selfish. All right. And then he says you got to spend at least 5 minutes with each one of these and make up a little scenario or something, little story in which they've already happened. You notice the resemblance here to what we're doing, right? What we've been talking about. And then you have to memorize this list and be able to cycle through these 20 things, forwards, backwards, upside down. I'm learning to do this right now. I mean, I could tell you some of my things, but I got my list of 20 things here, and most of them I have my image for. You know, one of them is I'm just able to run again. I'm 73 now, so I'm able to jog, and I have a visual as I'm jogging up a hill. Another one is I'm standing on a scale. I weigh 185 pounds. Another one is I have my own rock band. Another one is I'm able to rent a summer home on City Island and have a beachfront and sail from there for a summer. But it's just these things, right? And what he teaches you to do, and what these CDs in his book teach you to do, is you learn to cycle through these images and the feelings associated with them very quickly. All right? And what the graduate students are doing while they sit there, and what he's doing, is they are simply, he calls it cycling, they are simply running over and over again through these images of at least 20 things that make them extremely happy. And to me, this is just, it's totally fascinating, because it's like, if some kind of, and what happens is that, you know, as people do this, as it gets to be second nature, that people do this, and if you get the thing, if you actually get something, you got to take it off the list and put something else on the list, because things start happening. It does start happening. So this is a manifestation technique as well. But what he's doing is you're putting your mind into this mental exercise of simply cycling through this happened, this happened, this happened, and this very quickly. And that's all these kids are doing. And what happens is, when they do this, for most of them, their hands get hot. And while the mice actually have cancer, they tend to cluster around the left hand. For most people, they seem to be, after the mice are well again, they don't give a shit about the left hand. But, you know, while this something is going on, just an hour a day, the mice all hang out right by the left hand of the person. And I'm not there yet. I don't know if I'll get there or not. We'll see. It's a job to learn this. I mean, it's work. He says it's like learning to walk. It's like you don't know how you walk right now. But anyway, the point is, it's like you get out of the way and you somehow put yourself into this state where you're cycling constantly these things as if they were real, these false memories of stuff that makes you really happy and fulfilled. And at that point, somehow, for most people, in laboratories with real sick mice, this makes the mice well. And people feel these energies moving and so on and so forth. Though some don't feel anything and the mice still get well. So you can read about this in Hands-On Healing, William Bengston, Bengston. I can text that to everybody. Wait a minute. Well, no, I'm not going to do that because I don't know how. Wait a minute. Everyone. Here we go. So this is both a CD and a book, set of CDs. But to me, that's just totally fascinating that, you know, in some sense, what he's doing is he's getting the individual person out of the way. He's getting the individual person into a state where they're, in some sense, you know, there's part of your brain that doesn't know the difference between what happens and what you imagine vividly, right? So if you've got these things that you've worked up and imagined and, you know, like I'm writing little paragraphs about each one of them, and then you learn to just move through them. The other thing he says is, this just fascinates the hell out of me. He says, you do this in response to strong emotions. So when he was healing the mice the first time, he was just scared to death that nothing was going to happen. And somehow his theory is that you're somehow harnessing the energy of these emotions. He says, I don't care if they're negative or positive. You get more energy from a strong negative emotion than you will from a weak positive one. But you're somehow taking the energy in these feelings, putting yourself into this state where you're extremely fulfilled and somehow, I guess, apparently also open to something that comes through you. So he's trained all sorts of people to do this. This is but the reason I bring it up is this, it's the same thing we're talking about. It's this very interesting use of, you know, their visualizations really. But his idea that his practice of you get a bunch of them and you really move through them just over and over again very quickly for a period of time.
Can I ask a question, Michael?
Yeah, please, because I'm about to run down here for a minute.
I'm just interested, just in that little bit I hadn't heard. So, like, if you have a strong negative emotion, so I'm just wondering if you are feeling that, like, you know, sometimes our problem, our issue has quite a strong negative, like, I'm so frustrated that I'm not bringing enough money and I can't pay my bills, or what? Like, if that's, like, are you saying you can harness that kind of energy?
He feels he says, don't do this to get rid of the feeling. If you want to get rid of the feeling, do EFT or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is not what this is. He says, though, of course, the minute you realize that this bad feeling can pump good stuff into your life, that's going to change your attitude about the bad feeling, right?
Yeah, I like that.
Not a bad feeling. Let me get going with this stuff, right?
That's a good reframe.
It's, to me, this is amazing. See, okay. So now the other thing, they figured out that they can charge cotton and they can charge water with this energy. All right. So this is not only teachable, but whatever this energy is, it can be captured in cotton and in water, and you can send the cotton or the water to people, and you will get effects.
Wow. Well, that's the Shroud of Turin.
Okay.
Because that would have been cotton, and so you can imagine, well, whether that went back to Jesus' time, but apparently he did send a cloth to some man who ran the Decapolis, and so that makes a whole lot of sense. And of course, Masaru Emoto was doing that with water, where you put a label around the bottle. Brilliant. Okay.
Right. Right. So, if you want to play a game, just even I started out with just 5 of these things. I've got about 15 of them now where I can run through them pretty reliably, very quickly. And the idea is to go faster and faster at this. So I'll be meditating, and I'll do, 1 on the in-breath, 1 on the out-breath, 1 on the in-breath, 1 on the out-breath. And then I'll try to do 2 on the in-breath and 2 on the out-breath. So you really have to have them. You're really training some subconscious part of yourself. You know what I mean? He says this is like learning to walk. All right? That you're building some neural muscles of some kind here. And they've got, they've hooked him up to EEGs and stuff like this, and his brain goes into some kind of strange state that nobody's ever heard of. It's not theta or delta or any of these things. It's much faster instead of slower than the normal alpha waves. This is real. This is real. This is reproducible science. And I think it's totally fascinating. If you want to play this game, just, first of all, it was very hard for me to think up 20 things when I started this. I realized how constricted I was, how completely I had gotten myself used to being small. Do you understand me? That don't look for or ask for stuff that's beyond, you'll just be disappointed.
Yeah.
But after I'd made up about, now I got about 22 of them, and I can't cycle them all yet, but I work on it every day a bit. But just get 5 of them, right? Spend 5 minutes, write a little story, or do exactly what I talked to you about. Focus and instantiate them, right? They're real. What are some things? What does the situation look like? Like one of mine is this beautiful boat cruise from Barnegat Bay to Marble. And I've imagined all the places we would stop and so on. So I can jump into that any place. Montauk, we're having dinner in this yacht club, or we're entering this. I can jump in there any place very quickly and get the feeling, because that would make me so bloody happy. Okay, I used to sail around there all the time. But to do this with a bunch of my friends on a big trimaran, I would just be overjoyed. So I can quick. The other thing he says is what you're doing is you're touching on these feelings, and at the same time you're letting go of them very quickly. You're not clinging to them. You're putting it out there, and you're moving on to the next one, putting it out there. If you want to play this game, I suggest you just think up 5 and see what happens. You can find Bengston stuff on the web all over the place. There's videos on YouTube as well. So that kind of moves us through what I wanted to talk about. 2 weeks from tonight, we will have another one of these. I will try to engage you in a conversation, and I think this one will be about... what's going on in the world right now is that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the constellation community were the only people, aside from indigenous people, were the only Western modern type people that were talking about ancestral trauma, who were talking about how you could inherit trauma. unresolved trauma can pass to descendants. Now, the world is very different. Epigenetics has come along, and now we know that there are all these epigenetic switches that are heritable. So the trauma is, the lab tests and everything, trauma is passed through these. And so there are more and more people who are interested in and working with ancestral trauma. I go to energy psychology conferences and talk, and I've been talking, this will be my 5th year, I guess, talking about constellations in conjunction with energy psychology, EFT and EMDR, things like that. And so I've watched people who've listened to me in previous years come in, and now they're doing ancestral work too, only they don't do it with constellations. So next time I want to talk about process versus perspective here, because the perspective of heritable trauma, it's growing all over the place. But not everybody who has that perspective uses the same process. I think that the constellation process is particularly good because it's a whole systems approach. I've watched people at the ASEP conference, work on a client and one ancestor at a time, and try to resolve something between a grandmother and a granddaughter. The granddaughter is the client, and I suspect that there's value in that. But those of us who do constellations know that, yeah, but there may be, structures, there may be energy flows or failures of energy to flow in that whole family system that make it, that's not going to stick, that's not going to work too well, because we really didn't look at the whole system. You follow me there, right? So and this is something that I tried to talk about. We talked about it in the US and Canadian constellation conversations last year, but unfortunately I really didn't hear any of it showing up at the conference in San Francisco in 2015. I think it's going to show up at this conference in 2017. So that's 2 weeks from tonight. So please, if you enjoyed this, come back, bring people. I'll keep doing these if we can get some people going for it. When I did the constellation call for a long time, we had a lot of people involved in it after a while. This will be recorded. It'll be available on the page on my website for the Family Energetics free evenings. And you can send a friend there to look at it if you want. And they'll see me fumbling around at times and being rather hopefully intelligent at times. And they'll see you guys being intelligent. Okay, so that's the commercial. Do come back, bring people. Thank you for being here. What else do you have to say?
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I will be back whenever I can, whenever I will be looking forward to learning from you in June as well. I am fascinated. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I want to thank you also. Thanks very much.
You're welcome, Stephen. You're a very active guy. Just remember to mute your video when you start waltzing around, okay? No, it's a good etiquette. I mean, for everybody. Because our eye is drawn to someone, and then it does a strange thing to the energy when you've got one or two people who are off at the other end of the room, and so
I hear you.
It sucks energy from the group in the sense that, well, that person's not there or something. So just mute. You can mute your audio and or your video. Marie, how are you? You got to unmute.
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed it this evening. Yeah, it's really good.
All right, I think the answer to the Tarot question that we started out with, I think Sharon gave that answer very well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You could use Tarot probably in a lot of ways in conjunction with constellations.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michael. I always enjoy it.
You're welcome. All right, so thank you all for being here. Let me just see. Oh. Okay, so there's no texts that I have to deal with, and I've got the emails of the people I'm supposed to send something to. Okay, thank you all very much. Many blessings. Say prayers for the world governments now. All righty.
Hey, Michael, that was a lot of fun. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.